Nermeen Sheikh.
The Senate has confirmed Jeff Sessions as the United States Attorney General after a 52 to 47 vote Wednesday evening. Sessions' confirmation has faced widespread protests over his opposition to the Voting Rights Act and his history of making racist comments. The vote capped a contentious 24 hours. On Tuesday night, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren was silenced and rebuked by the Senate for reading a 1986 letter written by Coretta Scott King denouncing Sessions, who was at the time being considered for a federal judgeship. Presiding officer, Montana Republican Senator Steve Daines, first interrupted Warren.
It has been a long uphill struggle to keep alive the vital legislation that protects the most fundamental right to vote. A person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws.
The senator is reminded that it is a violation of Rule 19 of the standing rules of the Senate to impute to another senator or senators any conduct or motive unworthy or becoming a senator.
Mr. President, I don't think I quite understand. I'm reading a letter from Coretta Scott King to the Judiciary Committee from 1986 that was admitted into the record. I'm simply reading what she wrote.
That's Senator Elizabeth Warren. She was then allowed to continue reading the letter and speak further about her positions to Sessions, but after 20 minutes, Warren was again interrupted, this time by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Mr. President.
The Majority Leader.
The senators impugn the motives and conduct of our colleague from Alabama as warned by the chair. Senator Warren, quote, said Senator Sessions has used the awesome power of his office to chill the free exercise of the vote by black citizens. I call the senator to order under the provisions of Rule 19.
Mr. President.
The senator from Massachusetts.
Mr. President, I'm surprised that the words of Coretta Scott King are not suitable for debate in the United States Senate.
Senator McConnell went on to defend his decision to silence Elizabeth Warren.
She was warned. She was given an explanation. Nevertheless, she persisted.
She persisted. Senator Warren was then prohibited from speaking for the remainder of the debate over Sessions' confirmation after the Senate passed a party-line rebuke against her. Following Warren's silencing, several male Democratic senators urged their colleagues to vote against Sessions by reading the same letter. They were not rebuked. In the letter, Coretta Scott King cites Sessions' attempted prosecution of 3 black civil rights workers in Marion, Alabama for voter fraud. We're joined now by Reverend Dr. Barbara Reynolds. She worked with Coretta Scott King on her memoir, Coretta Scott King, My Life, My Love, My Legacy. You know, interestingly, Reverend Dr. Barbara Reynolds, this may be the first time that Coretta Scott King's testimony against Sessions was actually put into the congressional record. She had sent it in 30 years ago, but at the time, the Judiciary Chair, Senate Judiciary Chair Strom Thurmond, a fierce segregationist, did not put her testimony into the record. So 30 years later, Senator Warren got it put in by reading it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. But when you look at this spectacle of a female U.S. Senator trying to read a testimony of an American hero, Coretta Scott King, who was a witness to what happened in Alabama, what she stood up for, and both of them were silenced, it just made me feel that we were back to the 1950s. It was an appalling sight. But I want to say this about who she was, because she was not talking theoretically. I mean, she grew up in Marion, Alabama, where this whole case with the Marion 3 took place. These were civil rights leaders who were trying to register blacks to vote, and Sessions prosecuted them. Now, this is important because of who she is and why she should have been heard, because she knew what most of us do not know, because she lived it. When she was 15 years old, her home that she grew up in was burned to the ground. Her father had 2 businesses. One was a sawmill, and that was burned to the ground. But they had no vote, they had no voice, and they were considered nobodies that the police didn't have to protect. And this is what the civil rights movement that she was a co-partner in with Dr. Martin Luther King corrected that. And we come into the 80s. Now blacks had more voting power in places like Marion, Alabama. And she wanted people to know what had happened, because she represented thousands and thousands of people who could not vote, had no power to protect themselves. And so now we come to 1986, and she's reporting and in her testimony of what was, the progress had been made, and how she never wanted America to go back to that. Why
Reverend
not
Dr. Barbara
that?
Reynolds, we're going to continue this conversation and post it online at democracynow.org. The memoir is called Coretta Scott King. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh. Thanks so much for joining us.